Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. This is episode 41, dedicated to a man whose name is on the back of the only signed jersey I have in my closet, former Indianapolis Colt and current New York Giant, Mr. Antoine Buffet. And as always, thank you for listening and downloading to another episode of the podcast. Remember to always subscribe, rate, and review. It's a great way for people that are searching for a new podcast to listen to come across this one. Then remember to always get the word out about the podcast via word of mouth. The things that we enjoy in life, we are more willing and somewhat wired to tell other people about. So no matter if this is your first episode or if you have been listening since episode number 1, be sure to let people know about the podcast. If you have not gotten around to listen to my first guest appearance on a podcast, I think you should just go ahead and head over to the Next Guy Up podcast right now. We had a great conversation, myself, Keith Potter, and also cousin Mike. We talked about Minnesota Golden Gopher football, the Indianapolis Colts, and also the Chase Young suspension. If you haven't gotten over to do that, head over there right now. I think you'll enjoy the conversation that we had. Also, today we're going to have part 2 of my conversation with one of my former college classmates, Mr. Garrett Grandy. Today was all about football. Part 1 was all about basketball, primarily the Boston Celtics, with him being a lifelong Boston sports fan. Today is primarily about, or all about, the NFL, primarily New England Patriots football. Now, he does make some comments about the Indianapolis Colts, about Peyton Manning, the offense Peyton Manning used to run back in the day. He makes some comments about the Colts this year, some comments about the Colts this year, makes a comment about Adam Vinatieri. He also talks about who he picked preseason. I didn't ask him for this, but he threw it in there anyway. He also made a comment about who he picked preseason to win MVP, to win the Super Bowl, or who he thinks the current defensive player of the year is right now at this point in the season. Also, just like I asked my dad's episode was my first guest on the podcast, episode number 14. If you have not listened to that, go back to episode number 14, listen to that one. I think you will enjoy it. Also, I asked my dad who he would pick between Kobe or LeBron. I asked Garrett the same exact thing. Unlike my dad, Garrett gives an explanation for why he picks the person that he picked. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take another trip to Black River, New York, to listen to part 2 of my conversation with Mr. Garrett Grandy.
All right, Garrett, at one time, the Patriots had Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett, and they still have Tom Brady. How crazy is it to think about that 2 guys that were backups on that squad are now starters? One guy's undefeated. One guy is hurt currently, Brissett, which I don't like, but our team is actually, when we play at our best, we can probably beat anybody in the NFL because of our defense. And then you have, that's the Colts that is, and then you have Tom Brady. How crazy to think about that those guys were on the same squad, and then how crazy is it to think that the 2 that were backups, they're now starters, and they're leading their teams better than anybody could have imagined.
Yeah, it's really a testament to the Patriots organization, Belichick. There's others that are involved, McDaniels. Really, probably a lot of credit should go to Josh McDaniels because, of course, he was a part of that group that was developed.
Don't say that name here in Indianapolis. He left us hanging.
I know. He did. That was pretty bad. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. As Patriots fans would I think, maybe a little payback for Deflategate, but for that saga. But yeah, that's a curse word in Indianapolis, I'm sure.
Oh, big time. Big
so
time.
we'll just call him JM for now.
I like it.
but of course, a lot of credit goes to him, and it's really unbelievable. Of course, everyone kind of expected Garoppolo to do well. I think that was an expectation. I mean, of course, right now, I look at that team, I think that Niners defense, and there's other players that are carrying that team. Mm-hmm. It's tough to say that the reason why they're undefeated is because of Jimmy Garoppolo. I will say that honestly. He came in during that season when Brady was suspended those first 4 games, played really well, and now he's in a really great situation again. But it's tough to say with that situation that he's in, is Jimmy that good? He's certainly, I think he's 15-2 or 16-2 in his first start, which is unbelievable. One of the best starts ever of any career ever. And for him to come back from the injury that he had and play the way he's playing is pretty incredible. Brissett is a major surprise. I don't think anybody, including yourself, thought that when Andrew Luck left, you would be looking at this Colts team and saying, "Hey, man, we're one of the best teams in the league." And I don't think anybody thought that. Mm-hmm. I think everyone thought it's over. I mean, it's back to rebuilding mode. We're gonna, win 3 games. And of course, you didn't even mention, but Brian Hoyer was the Patriots' backup, and he's starting. Of course. So you've got, the Colt. Yes, JM didn't kind of burn you, but you've got two former Patriots quarterbacks playing there, and he's serviceable. And of course, so it's really unbelievable the fact that those 3 were on the same team, and look at them now. Of course, I'm sure you've got to give some credit to Brady, because of course with older quarterbacks, they are always, working with the backups, working with the younger quarterbacks. And of course, Brady always gives a lot of credit to Hoyer for working with him. He said, he was incredible team. So I can see the reason why the Colts brought Hoyer in, because Hoyer can help Brissett and can work with him and can mentor him. And though Hoyer's not, as talented as, Brady, Brissett, Garoppolo, his mind and his experience, I'm sure, are being a great help to someone like a Brissett. I'm happy for Brissett. I'm happy for Garoppolo. I'm excited about it. I think it's wonderful. I'm glad that there is another team in the AFC that's making a run, because it's like we had talked about, we missed you missed the Brady Manning rivalry. We missed those years of, every year we were, they're going to play in the AFC Championship game or the divisional round or when they saw each other in the regular season, they were going to be undefeated or have one loss, or, they're playing for home field advantage, and it was just back and forth every year, which I think that rivalry is the greatest ever. Manning and I don't think there's anything that compares to that for the length of time and the amount of big games that they played in. As far as those 3, it's really incredible, or Garoppolo and Brissett, what they're doing, and I think it's really exciting. I think it's really good for the league to have, young quarterbacks competing. Of course, I foresee that in the next year or 2 years, if you look at the AFC landscape, I mean, Brady's 42, 43, going to be 43.
Something like that.
Of course, he's going to be, yeah, I know. He's going to be retiring soon. I know people don't want to think that, but in New England, but he is definitely, you could tell there's some age there, some throws. He's shying away from hits. It's just a natural thing when you get older. You don't want to get hit. So,
right.
So I foresee that a team like the Colts with that offensive line is unbelievable. You've got Marlon Mack, who is great. He's great. Brissett's on the rise. You've got a decent brand new coach basically is coming in there fresh. You're talking about a team that's on the rise. And so I foresee that, and that team just went into Kansas City and beat Kansas City with a healthy Mahomes.
Yeah.
and really beat them up pretty good. And I think a lot of teams are going to look, if I was watching tape on the Chiefs, I would look at that game and say, what do we have to do what they did that night, and get after him and limit him. I mean, he still made plays, but what a win that was. That was spectacular. And I think that it's the story of the year. I really do. I think the fact that you have Luck retiring and everyone saying the Colts don't have a chance. They're in the division with the Texans, and they don't have a chance in the AFC. The fact that they're right there in the AFC is really incredible. I think it's the story of the year. I really do. And and of course the Niners too, with that group with Nick Bosa and what he's doing. But certainly with the Colts, I think to me that's the surprise of the year. That's the story of the year, and what they're able to do. And for them to even, to say, are they a Super Bowl team? I don't know, but they can look back at this year at the end of the year and say, wow, we've got a lot to be happy about and build on. And I respect Andrew Luck even more now, looking back, to say, hey, maybe he saw some things in this team that nobody else saw. Say, hey, man, we're going to be pretty good with or without me, and maybe even better without me, without the the dealing with the injuries and such, and so more power to him on that, and with Andrew Luck. But yeah, I think that's the story of the year, and it's pretty incredible what those three are doing. And of course, with Brady, he's still, I think, second in the league in yardage, which is insane. But he's 40. I mean, 42 years. But I think a lot of that is the, a lot of people say, oh, he's a system quarterback. I think everyone's a system quarterback to an extent. Because you look at Manning, he was in the right system. I mean, Brady's in the right system. Nobody would argue that Russell Wilson is in the right system, which was my pick to win MVP. Just to pat myself on the back, I should say Russell Wilson was going to win MVP at the beginning of the year, and I think he's going to win MVP. Especially if tomorrow if they beat the 49ers tomorrow, I think that's a lock for him with the MVP race. Whereas, and honestly, besides the Colts, Lamar Jackson is also right up there with being that highlight of the year. Like, who saw that coming?
He's insane.
Yeah, I mean, just last year, everyone was saying he's a running back, or he should be a wide receiver. He's not a quarterback. And then he comes out week one. Now, granted, it was against the Miami Dolphins, which but he still came out. I think he threw 5 or 6 touchdowns in that game, and everyone's like, wait a minute here, this guy's got an arm. So and he's got a great coach. Harbaugh's been there a long time. And they've got a good young, group of players. You got Hollywood Brown. I think in the next year or two, the landscape of the AFC is really going to shift. You got Kansas City. It's going to be a powerhouse, no doubt about that. But I think you're going to see a lot of teams competing in the AFC that you haven't seen lately, and that dynasty grip of the Patriots is going to loosen a lot because it's just natural. He's going to retire. And some people think he's going to go somewhere else. I don't think he's going to go somewhere else. I think he's going to retire, and then we'll see from there. But you'll see a lot of those other teams that'll, compete in the AFC for championships.
Yeah, I don't get the whole talk of him going somewhere else. I don't see the reason why. I get Montana went somewhere else, and other quarterbacks, Brett Favre,
but Montana
went
to
2 other teams. No, true. That's true.
Yeah.
But you get like these all-time greats, they go to other teams, and it's the team sending them up. Well, Brett Favre was stupid. He didn't know what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
He just kept saying, I want to play, I don't want to play. All of a sudden, he's back on someone's team. But I don't see Brady with some of the love affair you may want to say that him and Belichick have, that him and Kraft have. I don't see him going somewhere else because he's still playing as well as he is, and he's been there so long. It's almost like, why would you? I can see if he dropped down and he was like a trash quarterback, he was horrible, and he wasn't able to do anything, like almost like worse than Peyton Manning was in his last year. But we haven't seen that from Tom Brady. So to think that he would go somewhere else when he's still winning in every single year, his defense finds a way to win games. They find a way to win the Super Bowls. Why would you leave? I mean, if it's up to me, I don't understand. Right. I wouldn't leave, and I don't understand why people think he would leave.
Well, he said in one recent interview, he said, I don't know why people are saying this. My contract situation has been the same for so long, and I know he wants his, obviously he deserves his due. He wants his due. But his wife is worth so much money. I don't think it's about the money. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's about him and Belichick and Kraft. They all don't like each other. I think that's a joke. I really do. I think that there was some, issues when it came with Garoppolo leaving. I think that was a big thing for Belichick. I'm sure, deep down he wants to prove that he can win without Brady. But yeah. I don't think that Brady at his age, with the way things are, that he's gonna just up and go somewhere else. People say, well, he sold his home. Well, people don't realize he just bought a home in Connecticut. So it's not like he didn't just go buy a home and somewhere else in California or even if he did, it could just be he's moving on. I don't see him playing until he's 45. I don't. I know that they've said that. He said that for so long. I think there is some frustration there with the turnover at receiver. I think Brady got really close with Antonio Brown, and everyone says that he gets close with the players, even players like James Harrison and others. Players you would never think you would have seen in a Patriots uniform, coming back and saying, "Oh yeah, he was a great teammate. He was very helpful." So I look back and I think, same way with Manning. Manning's the same way. I think anybody you put with him is just going to be better. Any player you put with him, they're going to be a better person. They're going to be a better player. And so it's now Manning, of course, went to a different team, but he was younger, a little younger, and he still had some years left. And we don't have an Andrew Luck in the wings. Garoppolo, to me, I would say Andrew Luck is a better player than Garoppolo is, but he just couldn't stay healthy.
Right.
I certainly think if you had a healthy Luck right now, I think the Colts would win the Super Bowl. If Luck was there and healthy, I think they would win the Super Bowl. I really do, because that guy, he is a genius when it comes to that position. But anyways, with Brady, I don't foresee him going anywhere else. Do I think this year is the last year? I do. I actually do think this year is the last year.
Interesting.
I think because when you listen to his interviews, he's talking about, one day I know I'm going to wake up and it's going to be all over, and I've got to make preparations for the future. Whereas before, if you ask him, hey, he's like, yeah, man, I'm playing until I'm 45. There was no doubt. It was a no doubt answer. No, I'm still going to play next year. But this time, it seems like there's a lot more. He's reflecting. He's talking about his kids. His kids aren't getting any younger. His wife certainly wants him to retire. She's been wanting him to retire for 10 years, be home with his family. So what I would like to see is my dream situation, years in the future maybe, is, having Manning be a coach and Brady be a coach somewhere. That's what I would like to see. I think, personally, between the two of them, I think Manning would be a better coach because he's a genius. The way he ran those offenses that he ran in Indianapolis in those years were just unreal. I mean, today everything is so offensively geared, with the penalties, but he was putting up numbers in a time when it wasn't like that, and he would just blow you off the field in that dome, and he's right, obviously right up there as one of the greatest of all time. So, but I would like to see that, again, somewhere around somehow, some way, that rivalry restored. So,
it'd be amazing, man. It'd be amazing to just
maybe
watch football
or something, like grow up and keep it going.
Competing in high school and stuff like that. That'd be fun to watch.
Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? It seems like that's the in thing right now. Well, do I have the people for you? Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and extremely easy to use. And now, Anchor will match with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid for podcasting right away. To get started, go to anchor.fm/start. Once again, that's anchor.fm/start.
I know you've been a Patriots fan for a long time. In college, you and I went back and forth all the time. I didn't really have much to say because you were winning more rings than the Colts were when we were in school. I mean, it was bad. It was embarrassing to me. But I think it was 06, 07. I think it was the 07 pass that had Randy Moss with that crazy high-powered offense, and this offense, or this team, not the offense, just a team in general. Which team would you prefer? This one currently constructed, or going back about 12 years to the one when it was Brady and Moss torturing everybody every week?
I don't think it's close. It's the 07 team. As much as I don't want to admit it, everyone has pretty much hit the nail on the head that, hey, they haven't played a lot of good competition yet. And then when they did, yes, they stayed in the game for a little while, but the Ravens really put a beat down on them.
They did.
A couple last week.
I loved it.
It was. I know you did. I know you did. Of course, everyone did. Of course, I don't expect them not to enjoy that. But with the 07 team, that was a special team, and you're talking about a miracle catch away from a perfect season. Anything could have happened in that game, and you're talking a helmet, a helmet catch and all that. Manning running around, Eli running around and chucking it up there, hoping with his eyes closed that somebody would catch it. I mean, they were that close, and he had 50 touchdowns, and Moss, I think, broke a record that year, touchdown catches. That team was unreal, and that defense was pretty good too at that time. So This defense, this team kind of reminds me of those earlier 01, 03, 04 teams where you had Bruce and Harrison and Ty Law. That team was so loaded defensively, and everyone's great argument during that time is if you gave Manning that defense, look what would he have done? He would have won 5 straight championships probably if you gave Manning that Patriots defense, because that defense was incredible. I'm talking about that 03, 04, that team, 01 team. But I think when you look at this year's team defensively, that's what I compare it to. I just don't think they have enough offensively to get them over the edge in the end. I think a healthy Patrick Mahomes or that Kansas City team can probably get over the hump. Or even the Ravens, even the Colts, right there. I just think that I don't compare this year's team to that 07 team. I don't. It hasn't even. I know everybody every year says, well, maybe they'll go undefeated and 16-0, and it never crossed my mind that they would go 16-0 this year, never, because I looked ahead and saw, well, you got to play the Ravens, you got to play the Cowboys, you got to play the Texans, you got to play the Chiefs. So that schedule coming up, including last week where they just lost, is so difficult, and I think they got to play Philly next, which that's not going to be easy because Philly's coming around. So in Philly, and the Patriots have always had trouble with the Eagles, including the Super Bowl loss. And so I just don't. I would definitely take the 07 team, and I think the 07 team, if you were to put the 07 team on the same field as this year's team, and they were to play a game, I think that 07 team would beat up on them. And I think you'd see a lot of what the Ravens did. Now, of course, Brady is not going to run around like Lamar Jackson. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think anybody on that field could have stopped Randy Moss that year. He is an all-time great. That year he played out of his mind. They were triple covering him, and he would somehow find a way to get in the end zone in triple coverage. So there's nothing you could have done that with that team to stop them. The only way, obviously, is what we saw with the Giants, where they got pressure on Brady. That's how they were ultimately able to win that game, if you look back. But certainly, comparing those two teams, I think that 07 team is really incredible and on a different level than this year's team.
Yeah,
I would even say that the Niners are better than this year than the Patriots are.
Really?
Yes, I do. I do think they're better. When you look at the whole team, offensively, defense, I think the Niners' defense is right up there. Even you look at the numbers, the points per game allowed. I think Nick Bosa is the defensive player of the. I don't think he's just rookie of the year. I think he should. I think he could win defensive MVP in my opinion. He's played that well, and you've got some good cornerbacks back there. You got Sherman. I mean, I know he's getting older, but he still can play. And the offensive line, the defensive line, the running backs, Breida and Coleman and Mostert. That's a good trio right there. Pretty good. And then George Kittle, I would argue, maybe the best tight end in the game. I know a lot of people say Kelsey, but I think George Kittle's the best tight end of the game, and that boy can play. And you've got a young quarterback, and he's still, like I said, he's still developing. So they're set up for the future really well. And still, I still think the Saints, in the end, was my pick to win the Super Bowl. I'm still sticking with the Saints. I think, Breeze coming back, that team is so good. The experience.
Yeah.
I think in a playoff situation, if it were, let's say, the Saints and the 49ers, let's say they played in the NFC title game, I think Garoppolo is inexperienced. I think that's where you'd see him make maybe a few mistakes that would cost them in the end, whereas Breeze wouldn't make those mistakes. Or Russell Wilson, who's been in so many big moments and really, without a Malcolm Butler miracle interception, is going to win his second straight title. And who knows what would have happened from there? Who knows what would have happened from what the Seahawks would have been if they had won that second straight title.
Yeah. One of the benefits, I think, of Garoppolo, if him and Breeze were to be in the same, be in the NFC title, Garoppolo may be able to have home field advantage, even though he's younger and this is his first experience there, first full season starting in the NFL. That home field advantage is going to be key to him. Now, you got Breeze; he's been there, done that. You've got a Michael Thomas, who's one of the best receivers in the NFL. I talk to people about that all the time. Like, no, he's not that good. I'm like, watch him on the field. He's not going to be one of these flashy guys like an Odell, where he's going to be doing things to be seen. He's consistent. He catches the ball. He has sure hands. And cornerbacks, defenses, they don't want to see him on the field because in big times, in big games, he makes big time plays. So the one thing to Garoppolo, he may have home field advantage, which would help him in the situation. But you got Breeze as well, and Breeze, I mean, there's not much you can say about him. You just watch him on the field, and look at his track record. He's been there, done that. He's so hard to stop. Yeah,
and of course, you've got last year with that play, and people were very upset about that play, and he was right there, getting into another Super Bowl. I agree with you there. Home field advantage is going to play a big role. I think tomorrow night's game is just so huge with Seahawks and 49ers. Even the Seahawks are still they're still right there in the thick of things, and they can present some problems for the 49ers. And we'll see. I don't foresee the 49ers going 16-0. I don't think that'll happen. If they were going to lose, I think tomorrow night would be the game that they would lose. But man, if they go out there tomorrow and they put a beating on the Seahawks like they did the Panthers, I don't, maybe I'll have to adjust my Super Bowl pick at that point because I'm gonna just probably put my hands up in the air and say, well, I guess the 49ers are much even better than I thought they were, and that's saying a lot because I think they're really great. So we'll see. Tomorrow night's game is going to be huge.
One quick question before we get into these. I got 10 questions I want to end the podcast with, more just quick hitter things, this or that type of style. But one player that used to be on your team that is on my team now, not Brissett, going Vinatieri. What have you thought with his issues this year? Because from my point of view, and I've been at games. I went to the game, the Broncos game. I think it was this past week, and I'm sitting there. We just scored a touchdown on the end where me and my dad are sitting. So it's kind of just, oh, okay, cool. You don't watch PATs. We look up, he missed it. All the fans in the stadium assume that he made it, so we're cheering, and the cheerleaders are doing their thing, but the refs are saying no good. What do you think about what's happened with him this year?
He has been up and down, that's for sure. I think he had that game winner, was like a 51-yarder, and you think, my goodness, this guy's going to play till he's 60. But then early on in the year, he had some really terrible misses. The game winner against I think it was Pittsburgh, he really missed that one. I think it was a 43-yarder against Pittsburgh. I don't know. It's tough to say because if you're a Colts organization, do you move on from the arguably the greatest kicker who's ever lived? Or do you say, well, he said what Vinatieri says is that he's got some work to do, and he's going to work on his craft, and he's going to practice, and he's not going to look behind, he's going to look ahead and keep going. And so with Vinatieri, I mean, he could still play. There's no doubt about that. He can still play. He still made a big kick this year. So obviously, but really, it's really up to that organization. Do they want to bring somebody else in? I mean, I guess that would be my question for you as a Colts fan. What would you do you want to move on from Vinatieri? I would say probably some Colts fans would say yes, absolutely. We love him, and he's been around so long, and I think he's probably played longer for Indianapolis now than he did in New England. He played in New England quite many years too, and made so many big kicks and for both teams. But at some point, do you say, "Hey man, it's time to hang him up, time to hang up the laces"? Of course, some would argue that he missed that kick in Pittsburgh because the laces weren't out; they were in. But with Vinatieri, I don't know if that matters so much with him. The guy is the all-time, he's the go-to kickers, and no one would argue that. Just the Super Bowl moments and big kicks and the game winners and in the snow and, really incredible. And so if he decides to hang him up, I mean, more power to him. But if he wants to keep playing, I mean, it's up to the organization. I don't foresee him being, told to leave, obviously. Well, we're going to get somebody else. I think they're going to obviously let him make that decision. But I think it would be interesting to see if Brady and Vinatieri retired in the same year. I've always had kind of an internal bet between myself of who I think's going to retire first. So I don't know, between the two of them, who's going to retire first. Probably Brady, honestly. He's not taking hits or anything like that. So we'll see. I mean, he can still get it done. But certainly you want a guy that's more consistent and kicking those point afters. And I will say, probably the confidence level in him, probably as a Colts fan, is not as high as it was 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. You knew if you went out there in a game-winning situation, you're like, well, it's over. We're going to win. He's going to make this kick. Now you're like, is he going to make it? Is he going to kick it into the 8th row of the stands? Hit some guy selling concessions up in the 8th row? You don't know. The guy's phenomenal, and my opinion, it'd be good for the Colts to try to draft somebody, maybe even work under him for a year. I think that would be a smart move.
Yeah, I know there's a guy I work with. He was talking about him and I were talking about this kicking situation, and he was saying who's the backup kicker. I said, well, normally sometimes it's your punter, but nobody knows if our punter can kick field goals. Of course, you would think he can. Right. You would think he can, but we were blessed for so many years. When I was younger, we had Hunter Smith as our punter. Never had to go anywhere with him because Mike Vanderjagt was a surefire thing, just like Vinatieri back then. But we go from Vanderjagt to Vinatieri, and then we draft Pat McAfee. So McAfee, who was different personality. He could punt better than anybody in the NFL at that time.
Yeah,
but he could also make field goals up to 60, 65 yarders all the time, seemingly with him like in his sleep. So I don't know if there's a backup plan as far as a punter. I think, and I normally don't make statements like this, but the time, if you were going to make a change with Vinatieri, the time would have been earlier in the season because the Colts brought in, I think, 3 or 4 kickers, try them out, see what the decision was going to be, if they were going to bring another one on the roster, let the GOAT go. They decided to keep Vinatieri, trust him. And Frank Reich, one thing I like about him, every time he talks about the kicking situation, he always puts trust and says, I have all the trust in my kicker to make the kick. Now, that may not be his exact statement, but there's no doubt in his mind, in his words, that there's any trust. Now, sometimes people say that, and you can hear in their voice that they're lying, that they're not telling the truth. But every time Frank Reich talks about Vinatieri, he says, I trust him. And Vinatieri knows he needs to make the kick. Laces in, laces out. it doesn't matter if the punter messes up or the snapper messes up. He doesn't care. He says, I'm too good. I should make the kick. This deep into the season, there's not many kickers left. I mean, I think the Patriots are on their third kicker this season. Now, Grant, I think Gostkowski got hurt. But I think you guys on your third kicker okay. But you're on your third kicker this season. So if you want to let the best of all time go, who at some point in the playoffs, despite all the issues he had this year, could make a kick, could be there to make a kick, or you let him go, or what do you do? So I think this deep into the season, you keep him and just trust him because he's been there, he's proven himself. Yeah. And despite all the mental stuff, he can get over that mental hurdle and then make the kick at some point.
Right.
But that's just
I
me.
totally agree with you on that. I think obviously it's too late in the season to, move on. But yeah, I think in the future, and you bring up the Patriots kicking situation. I think this guy, was it Nugent? He is horrible. I mean, they brought him in, and man, oh man, he's horrible. He had like a 25-yard field goal, and it looked like it looked like he shanked it, but it was so close that he couldn't possibly not get it in between the crossbars. And man, he's just awful. And then they brought in Nick Folk. He came in, but the only kicks he made were 20-yarders. But obviously, I mean, I don't know if you watched the Ravens Patriots game, but they had the ball. It was like at the 36-yard line, and they punted because they don't have any faith whatsoever in their kickers. Now, our punter Bailey, he's been doing kickoffs. I don't know if he can kick field goals. Somebody just picked up Ryan Allen, which is a shock to me because he's a phenomenal punter. He was in the Super Bowl and was one of the MVPs of that game. If you remember that game, there was that defensive battle, field position battle. I mean, he was punting the ball, and they kept getting him within the 10-yard line, and somebody just picked him up. I don't know who else is out there, but it certainly isn't Mike Nugent or Nick Folk. I don't know. I know the Patriots signed some YouTube kicker to come in. I don't know what he can do. I'm not kidding. Yeah, some guy can kick field goals on YouTube who came in, and he's on the team. So we'll see who they end up the season with. I don't even think Nick Folk. He hadn't made a kick in 2 years, and all of a sudden he's kicking kicks, and we'll see if I think Gostkowski's going to come back, but he's getting old, and of course he's just came off hip surgery, so who knows how that affects you as a kicker. But we'll see when it comes to that. So
yeah, man, I got some quick things for you. I think it was supposed to be 10, but we already talked about one of them. Just 9 quick questions. Okay. Don't elaborate. Just make them kind of quick. We'll get out of here very shortly. Number 1, favorite memory from college. So like I said, make it quick. We could go on for hours about this.
Oh man, I know exactly. I can tell you the favorite memory from college. We had a staff game. It was us against the staff. I think you were still in school. Josh Carter was the quarterback, and he threw the game-losing interception. Dave Fraunhofer took it back.
Oh my gosh!
And there goes Brother Fraunhofer up the sidelines to score a touchdown. That was a great memory. I got dunked on by Jeff Ferguson. That was pretty nice.
Oh, goodness.
I just remember looking up, seeing those giraffe legs over my head, thinking, well, that was embarrassing. That was a great moment. We enjoyed some moments together there in the dorm. Always talking about sports, of course, but it was a fun time. But I think those two right there are right up there. If you want to associate sports, but yeah, certainly losing that staff game, and then of course we lost the basketball one as well.
We were set up to lose.
Yeah, that was not good. Playing that first game, and we were all tired, and then we got to play the staff. That didn't work out well.
Yeah.
We thought we had a chance, but no, none of us were professionals. That's for sure.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yep.
Got a few more quick ones for you, and try and make them quick. Favorite movie?
Man. The Dark Knight.
Favorite NBA player?
Luka. Yeah, we already talked about him, but Luka.
Something you've always wanted to do but you haven't done yet?
Beat Jay Stevens one-on-one in basketball. No. To be honest with you, I've never been to a Patriots game.
Really?
Never been. Nope. Never been. Always bad timing or, whatever, weather or whatever it may be. Never been to a Patriots game. I would love to do that sometime. It'd be nice to see Brady play one time before he retires. Never.
It would. It definitely would.
Never been. I've been to Celtics game, been to Bruins, but I've never been to a Patriots game.
Who do you think is better, all-time greats, Kobe or LeBron?
Kobe. Not even close.
Okay.
I could go into that, and that's coming from a Celtics fan. I don't like either of them, but Kobe's got the clutch. He's baby Jordan in my opinion. He's right up there with Jordan. I think it's Jordan, then it's Kobe, and maybe LeBron. But I might even put a few people before LeBron: Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson.
Favorite Patriot that you've watched in your lifetime, not named Brady?
Oof. Favorite Patriot? Oh man, Gronk. I gotta go with Gronk. Plus, he's hilarious. He was on Fox Sports as an analyst. He's a nut job. He's just funny to watch and listen to talk to, and just excited. I think he's one of those players that is like, yes, he's a Patriot, but everyone's just like, yeah, everyone likes that guy. He thinks he's dumb, but they, as a person, but they think, he's fun to watch and just a good guy, So I think Gronk. There are others, but Gronk's up there. Probably Teddy Bruschi is right up there as well.
Best sports memory?
Man, that is so tough. Oh boy, probably can I give two?
Go ahead.
It's tough. I would say that Malcolm Butler interception at the goal line, and 28-3, man. I mean, they're down 28-3. Comeback, greatest comeback ever. I mean, I can't even, and maybe, much as people hate it, the Tuck Rule game too, right there as well. But yeah, definitely those three.
See, I was expecting you to bring up the Yankees and Red Sox. I think the 04 series.
Oh man,
I didn't say it had to be just football or basketball.
Yeah. I didn't even think of the 04 Yankees Red Sox. Yeah, you might have convinced me there. That's tough. I'm such a bigger football fan than I am anything else, so my mind goes to football.
Favorite Celtics player?
Current or all time?
Don't matter. You pick.
Oh man, I want to make a joke and say Brian Scalabrine, the White Mamba, but
someone's going to laugh at that.
But I won't say that. Oh man, that's tough. I want to say one of the older players, but I wasn't alive during that time, so it's tough for me to say. Oh yeah, well Larry Bird. He's the greatest Celtics player ever. But I would probably say Paul Pierce.
Last one. Who will win a championship first? The next championship in their season, the Celtics or the Red Sox?
Wow, that is tough.
This ain't gonna be easy.
Celtics. Man, I would say the Red Sox.
Okay.
I just think with the NBA, baseball's built more on money, and the Red Sox have so much money. The Celtics, with the NBA, free agency is so complicated. It's a lot of it has to do with location. Does somebody want to go play in cold weather, Boston, or do they want to go play in sunny Florida, Miami, or LA? So when I think about it, I think the Red Sox have a better chance of winning another championship before the Celtics. You say the Celtics, yes. And I would include the Patriots in that too. I really do. I think it's going to be a while. I don't want to be the one that says the dynasty is done, but I see the window closing. I really do. I think this year, maybe next year, there'll be a powerhouse, and then you'll see that shift that finally everyone's been praying for to happen. Time to move on from the dynasty.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Popovich is still in San Antonio. They keep winning up. They haven't won championships every year, but they find a way to keep winning even when players get hurt. Belichick,
Right.
I think he may be there another 4 or 5 years. I would
Really?
never. I'm not sure, man. I mean, what else is the man going to do? I mean, he's kind of like, I kind of view him like a Nick Saban. No, it's different levels of football, but Saban wanted to prove that what he did at LSU, he could do in Alabama, and then Belichick is just a competitor in you. You want to be able to prove that what you did with Brady, you can continue that after Brady is gone. That's just how my mindset works with that.
Right. A lot of people think that way, what you're saying. And I didn't even think of that. But, yeah, Belichick I think he's pushing 70 now. And so.
Oh, he's older than I thought.
Yeah, he's probably, I think he's 66, 67. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, coach is coach. You can go back and look at a lot of coaches that coach really late in their years. But we'll see. I mean, a lot of people think Brady and Belichick retire at the same time. A lot of people think that Belichick wants to win without Brady, which is probably more my mindset as well as yours. Let's see what he can do without Brady.
Yeah, man. Hey, it was good talking to you. Good having you on the podcast.
Yes, you too.
We'll definitely have to do this again down the road. We did go over an hour with this thing. This was not expected, but this is normally what happens with us when we start talking sports. I'll have you on again, man. Thanks for joining us for a long, extended podcast.
Yeah, have me on for NFL playoffs, man. That's what we got to talk about next.
I got you. I'll try to pencil you in.
Yeah. Pencil me in. This is a good time. Thank you.
Man, oh man, that conversation, that right there brought back so many memories of Garrett and I's college days. We had a lot of fun. And we talked trash, we had fun, we played basketball. As you heard, we played football together. It was fun, man. We had a lot of fun together. And one of the most fun things I did trolling-wise, or talking trash-wise, the 2011 Super Bowl, or 2011-12, whatever year that was, and I meant to bring this up on the podcast when I was recording, but it just slipped my mind. That year when Eli and the Giants beat the Patriots for the second time in the Super Bowl, that year after the Patriots lost and the Giants won. Now, I'm not a Giants fan. I could care less about Giants football, New York sports as a whole. I don't really care. But one thing I took the advantage of, the liberty of, during that time period, I went online, I bought one of those, those beach towels, or those towels, you say Super Bowl champions, and it has your team emblem on it, and it has the symbol of that particular Super Bowl on that. And it's not just like a rally towel. No. It's like a beach towel size. That thing is big. Well, I bought one of those, put that thing over the side of my bed. So there were times that I would just have to look at Garrett and point. I wasn't the one that was just going to say, hey, man, y'all lost again to Eli. How does that sound? Like a reporter does. I wasn't going to do my best impersonation of a reporter, of a beat writer. No, I wasn't doing that. No, I was going to have one of those silent trolls. Or I was going to silently talk trash, if that's even a thing. So I put that towel that I had over the side of my bed in college. So every time Garrett walked towards my bed or saw my bed, he saw what? He saw that towel. Now, he could have just been walking a ways away. Just looked over towards it, got just a little glimpse of that thing. And man, oh man, he had a weird look on his face. But it was fun. We have fun. And as you could tell throughout the conversation that Garrett and I had, we have fun together. And it's very clear, as Garrett says, football is more his number one sport. When he was talking about football, you see why that portion took up a lot longer than the portion about basketball did just last week. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Jay Stevens Podcast. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Dr_J25. Follow us on Instagram at Jay Stevens Podcast. Send your emails to jstevenspod@gmail.com. Remember to always subscribe, rate, and review. It's a great way for people that are searching for a new podcast to listen to come across this one. Then remember to always get the word out about the podcast via word of mouth. The things that we enjoy in life, we are more willing and somewhat wired to tell other people about. So no matter if this was your first episode or if you have been listening since episode number 1, be sure to let people know about the podcast. This has been episode 41 of the Jay Stevens Podcast. I'll see you next time.